Hey guys, Robbie K coming back at you with yet another movie review of Robbie K's Reviews. Thanks, of course, for always checking in. Let's get started as we do the second review of the weekend, The Best of Enemies. For those who haven't seen the trailer, essentially, The Best of Enemies is about two, opposing sides in the strive for integration during the great revolution that was, with C.P. Ellis and Annie Atwell. Essentially, two very strong personalities having to be forced together to try to determine whether or not integration of schools was going to be a reality or remain a dream. Hey, Robbie K here again, coming at you with another Robbie K's Reviews. In regards to, if you're new to the channel, first of all, thank you for stopping by and checking out. And more importantly, here's just kind of where we're going. We'll do a quick and dirty review, as I call it. That's just kind of simplistic summary. Usually ends around the 3 to 4 mark, but then we'll kind of jump into more details if you'd like to stick around to get an idea of why I gave the scores that I was kind of looking. As always, conversation and constructive criticism will help. And if there's angles or stuff that I'm not looking at, then please feel free to comment to help me kind of look at ways to make this better so that I can become a better reviewer for you guys. Anyway, let's get started, as again, we're covering The Best of Enemies. In regards to The Best of Enemies, it is another kind of biography movie that brings in the movie magic with events that you may not know about. In this case, with the Durham component of integration, it works to portray two very strong personalities that sort of feels like you've got a Disney twist to it, sort of like Remember the Titans. A great sense of editing and kind of integration into ironically, of movie magic meeting reality worked very well, developing a pace and a dynamic that I think just keeps these kinds of movies going and fun. A great atmosphere, managing to hit the highlights without being dwelled on too much, and a fantastic chemistry and cast really show the idea that balance can be achieved in these films, and it's just a fun mix altogether. And of course, the acting by Taraji P. Henson and Sam Rockwell continue to impress me in terms of how their chemistry works and how dynamic and, I should say, how diverse of a role these people can play in terms of not only acting itself, but looks. It's a fun movie, and again, doesn't quite have the same unique flair that a lot of people are looking for in films. No unique twist, and not too much in terms of memes or one-liners that will become the next thing spouted out by millions of Americans, but effectively a strong, solid movie that tells an interesting case and story that sometimes goes unnoted in history. Now, again, it may not have all the movie-busting features that you're looking at, but still the message, the importance, and the documentation of this friendship, even with a little dramatization, make this a fun film to see, and I did quite enjoy it. So looking into its categories and movies overall is going to be tricky. But again, you'll have to kind of stick around for more details to elaborate on this. But overall, here's where my scores come in. I would say that the movie itself is, in terms of its genre, is probably going to be along the lines of about a 7.5, maybe an 8. In terms of movie overall, well, this is where it's going to kind of get hit because it's probably around the 6.5 mark. And again, it's not that it's a bad movie, but there are qualities that go into the score overall that I'll explain in kind of the next part. But hey, if this is where you leave me, then thanks again for checking out. I hope that you'll stick around and like it, but if not, please like, subscribe, and help me make this channel better. In the meantime, for those who are sticking around, well, let's get started. In terms of the detail, when it comes to this film, where do my likes begin? Well, if you didn't guess, my favorite thing is the acting chemistry. I love Taraji P. Henson. I think she's a wonderful actress, and even though she doesn't play all the roles I like, I still love her commitment to trying to take something and make it roll. And her as the leader of the Operation Breakthrough, she's got the sass, the charm, but surprisingly some emotional depth to it that works solidly well in this role, showing the heatedness of what I believe is a character. And when you see her real-life portrayal and kind of sass at the end, you definitely can get the two similarities. And Sam Rockwell, again, that gentleman continues to blow my mind with what roles he's able to play and what abilities he can do. And I just give him props again for blowing my mind in terms of how well he catches this role. Now, again, I don't know these people that they're portraying in person, and I haven't read so much on them, but I can definitely tell you that both of these guys just solidly hit it. And even the supporting cast works well. And this brings me to my next like, that even though the supporting cast aren't the big wigs, aren't the big bucks earners, and not the heart and soul of this film, what they are, though, is a key integration piece that expands upon just this rivalry, and it works well. The character balance and inclusion is the key factor that also bring the story, because it gives you different dynamics and tries to keep you in context of everything happening during this time. Again, dramatization versus reality, that's the question that always comes with these types of films. But solidly, I gotta say, I enjoyed seeing those other aspects and getting bits and pieces of their lives during this trial period where they were going under some big, heavy decision makings, especially in terms of the factions that they were talking about. Now, if you're still not impressed with it and looking for something else, well, where else do we go with this? It's a movie that's fun and inspirational, and that's something else that I kind of like. Now, if you really don't give a darn and you just want to be entertained, then this is probably not going to be a like. But if you're looking for those inspirational moments that biographical films can do when they look back into history, it's got it. It's still got, it's got those moments and sequences that sort of ring and touch in your heart, breaking through potential barriers of just looking into a film, followed by speeches and various uses of song, piano, special sound effects, those inspirational tracks and orchestral pieces that somehow manage to add a little more class, character, and depth to it, and something you weren't expecting. And it works, again, very well. The inspirational component and the motivation of what this became is what this movie is made for, and I give them kudos for that. Now, if that's still not your cup of tea, if you're still looking for a means to double back and kind of still looking for something else, well, where else do we have with it? Well, again, it's fun, and I already said that before, but now let me elaborate on it. Because it's not so dry, because it kind of did add that movie magic-esque to it, it brings a certain character and energy to the film. And I love that about it, because it just keeps you moving and shaking with it. As you kind of dive into these personality quirks, you're like, whoo, I really enjoy that. Yes, I agree with that. No, I don't. And getting into those characters and that energy of the character is just what makes it fun to go through their advice. Plus, I gotta give them props. There are some witty parts that are integrated in there without blowing the theme of the movie, destroying the momentum, and even more so, not becoming sort of the generic comedy that's lazy writing that sometimes we see. Yeah, it's not the most original. I will again give you that, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. But it is fun. And despite how long the movie is, most of it keeps it at a pace that you don't recognize how long it could potentially be. Again, I'm not warranting that it's the fastest movie, but it at least is fun and entertaining that if you decide to show this one at school, people aren't going to be too bored with it, at least not for most of the movie. And of course, you've got the fact that I guess the last part is actually, that might be the last part, but I'll have to say that I always appreciate being able to go back in history and see how these people in the movie business make the cans, make the settings, bring back the decades that have passed from long times past, including costumes, hair, makeup, and it works so well. So I'm going to give them props for that as well, taking me back in time. But now what about the dislikes? Well, here's where some of them come in. And I hate calling them dislikes. It's more of limitations that are my personal shot at it. So maybe you won't see it this way. That's okay, because I'm looking to potentially get new angles from it and hopefully inspire you to look at some of the stuff the same way I do. Anyways, getting into it, here's where some of my areas of limitations were. The first one is this. You still have sort of that preachy component moments, and it's not as bad as other films do, but you're still going to find those moments that get a little cheesy and take away from some of the momentum of the scene. Movie magic is definitely there. It's about balancing and finding those moments without jumping in too far. And to be honest, I can't really say this movie jumped too far. Maybe one or two times is a limitation. It's a small nitpick, and I got to find them sometimes, but that's essentially just a very small one. The second thing is that because it is not, a necessarily, unique fantasy fiction movie. You're not looking at a lot of big budget production components into it because, again, it's about realism and history more than the magic. And while I understand that, part of a reviewer is, in terms of telling you is it worth a trip to the theaters or not, is whether or not those effects are in there. And again, you probably aren't expecting it, and that's great because I'm hoping when you see the trailer you don't expect it. But is that theater quality? Well, that's something up in the air that I'll kind of go over. But nevertheless, this one doesn't have the big bang boom that we've seen in others. And again, I'm taking even Remember the Titans into this because that movie, despite not having fireworks and explosions and CGI generated monsters, still has those theater big components that come with it in terms of orchestral music, this footage editing, things like that. And that one's just not having the sort of heart and extra elements that come with it, which is both a good and a bad thing in my case. Pretty much the predictability is there. You kind of know, and most of that comes from the fact that you've seen the trailer. If you have seen the trailer at least twice and have a decent memory of what you pick from it, you're not going to be surprised because they've given away so much throughout the movie that you just have no idea how they're going to be able to twist it. Yes, I know, it's history. You can go back and read it. But you're just looking into those components that, you're not going to be hopefully too surprised. And in regards to kind of the extra elements that I liked, as I told you, it gives you the diversity of everyone involved in here. It just seems that sometimes sorry about the camera, sometimes those roles had potentials, but then just didn't seem to get resolved. And I'm not talking more so about some of the very tertiary storylines, but more so there were some big secondary character ones that I think were there and had some elements, but perhaps had a few more pushes that they could have gone through to really bring those characters out and have fun. This is including some of CP's side as well as Atwell's side. Again, big figureheads that spearheaded a revolution that started showing promise and then kind of took a step back. Again, I know who this story is primarily about, but once again, by teasing those components, maybe that could have used an extra amount of time where some of the other things could have been taken off. That's just my idea. And I guess finally, to be fair, the other thing about this is, and if you're looking into it, and again, I hate saying this because I get hit a lot on this, but I'm going to try again. It's the fact that there isn't necessarily the original storyline component. You got to think about the things that trend, the Game of Thrones, the Stranger Things and components like that become staples in people's mind. Even looking at Remember the Titans from how long ago it came out is still a staple in many people's worlds. This movie, I think, wanted that, and it does so well in delivering its messages and its inspiration and portraying these people's lives and their friendship. But unfortunately, it's lacking some of those extra qualities and finesse that comes with these kind of films or has the potential to be in these films to unfortunately not necessarily strike the exact thing they wanted. And that's probably one of the biggest limitations to the film, is that because it's missing those qualities and not quite the original suspenseful tale that comes with some of these films, I have a feeling that that's probably what's going to set this aside and make it not as theater worthy as some of the other ones that have taken the bait to doing it, which is a shame because, again, it's an important tale to tell. But in this day of technology, sometimes movies don't necessarily need to come to the theater when they can instead be put on cable as made-for-TV movies or on the streaming services that come with it, which is where I think this thing would have shined brightly with good Netflix publicizing and things like that. But quality-wise, in terms of, to wrap this up, quality-wise, The Best of Enemies has so much to offer. It's a great tale that has good character development, meeting a good important message. It's got fun integration, balance, and it works very well to bring you back into the heat of the moment. The problem is that I think it's just lacking a little more of the originality component to really finesse it, which is a shame because that could have really brought this in and hopefully brought more people into the box office. And I'm not entirely sure that that's going to happen with this one. Nevertheless, the movie is very fun. The movie has some good qualities, and I do encourage you to check it out. If you can make it to the theater, then you're not going to be surprised with the storytelling component. But If you're looking for that flashbang to get most out of your theater visit, then you need to check out and wait on this one and potentially look at something else in the near future. Nevertheless, guys, thank you so much for sticking around. Sorry for the long-windedness, but hey, that's kind of where the discussions come from sometimes. Anything I can do to make this better, I'll be happy to do my best to do. Please leave constructive criticism, and I'll do my best. But as always, if there's other angles I'm not looking at or things I'm being too harsh on and you think I'm saying incorrectly, then I'll do my best to say them better so that I make good, neutral, professional videos. But until then, have a great one, guys, and talk to you later.